Welcome to the Golden Pathway Zoom seminar. We have been hosting programs to bridge the gap between the 7 major world religions and the teachings of the Ascended Masters for over 10 years. In the last 6 years or so, the emphasis shifted from new seekers to deepening the work of serious spiritual seekers based on those teachings of the Ascended Masters. And we moved from phone seminars to Zoom seminars. So our annual themes have included topics as different as healing from a spiritual perspective, refreshing your psychology, creating abundance, relationships, practicing spirituality, climbing the mystical path, pathways to peace. And our theme for 2026 is embodying your sainthood. We are excited about this focus and how it will help all of us to accelerate our trek towards the ascension. So I'd like to start this session with 2 mantras. If you'd mute yourself and stay muted as we recite a couple of mantras together, starting with an Om together. Together. I am a son of God. I am a daughter of God. I am the Father and the Mother. I am the Holy Spirit. I am the Christ one. I am a son of God. I am a daughter of God. I am the Father and the Mother. I am the Holy Spirit. I am the Christed one. I am a son of God. I am a daughter of God. I am the Father and the Mother. I am the Holy Spirit. I am the Christed one. Now let's give the golden mantra, which is Tapadma Sambhava, saying, please grant me the ordinary and supreme accomplishments. Together. Om Ahum Vajra Guru Padme Siddhi Hum. 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 Om. Well, our topic today, thank you, is on education of the heart, the head, and the hand, presented by Maria Montessori. And we're going to learn how proper use of the intellect leads to a closer relationship with your higher self. Based on the principles of Montessori, we get the most widespread alternative educational system in the United States. It is a child-centered method developed by Dr. Maria Montessori that emphasizes hands-on, self-directed learning and collaborative play. Did you know that Mother Mary tutored the founder of Montessori education? Dr. Elisabeth Caspari was personally trained by Maria Montessori. This Zoom seminar will help you better understand the rationale for the practices of Montessori education and know the woman who helped spread it in the United States, her values, struggles, and victories. Learn how widespread Montessori is and the levels of education into which it has been incorporated. Apply these practices to educating and working with adults. The traditional Montessori approach will be shared along with innovations introduced by our presenter, Mary Ellen Maunz. Mary Ellen Maunz is the founder of the Age of Montessori, now known as the Institute of Montessori Training, a professional development program for teachers. She was asked by the messenger, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, to pursue this work. She consults internationally and has written books and materials for children and adults. A keeper of the flame since 1970, she served on the staff of the Summit Lighthouse for 43 years. She's also written Nurturing Your Child's Inner Life, Free to Be, and her autobiography, Unquenchable Light. Maria Ellen Maunz was trained by Dr. Caspari and has written a book about her, The Golden Thread, Life and Legacy of Elisabeth Caspari, Montessori Pioneer. Her books may be purchased through the Summit Lighthouse bookstore and on Amazon. Mary Ellen currently resides in Immigrant, Montana, and has 2 daughters and a son. And her, you can reach her at freetobelearning.com and at maryellenmaunz.com. Welcome, Mary Ellen. We're glad to have you with us today.
Thank you. See if I can get to where my slides are. Here we go. Okay. Thank you for the beautiful introduction, Patricia.
My pleasure. Glad to have you with us.
I am so happy to be here, and I've got some wonderful stories to share. I had the blessed good fortune of knowing well Mark and Elisabeth Prophet. They were parents of 4 children themselves, and in 1970, they founded Montessori International, the school that our community still has with a different name. But what was really amazing, that badge that you see was what we wore on the center of our uniforms, and that was designed by Mark. So I treasure the badge that I've kept all these years. The school started with only 5 children, and Mother had us meet every day after school, a group of 4 of us, one on each, on the 12 o'clock line, the 3, the 6, the 9, 4 of the teachers that were at the school. And we decreed with her for the expansion of what she called the pearl of great price. That was expanding the school. Within a decade, we'd gone from 5 children to 220 children. So that is alchemy in practice. So, as Patricia mentioned, I had the opportunity to serve with the messengers for a total of 43 years, 25 years at the very beginning from 70 to 95. And then there were a period of time when I did other things that Mother had asked me to do, and then came back and served on staff in the ministry team and the family ministry team. So there I am shaking Mark's hand in 1970 when I first got to know him. And then with Mother the day that I resigned from staff, because she had resigned, and so the school was closed and Summit University was closed. And so I made the decision with Mother's support that I should continue my Dharma with Montessori. And so I have never stopped. So we're going to focus somewhat today on Maria Montessori, who is the founder of the Montessori method, inspired by Mother Mary. She lived from 1870 to 1952, and how I wish I would have known her in person. I know some of you out there are Montessorians also, and I think we share that wish. She was a faithful observer of children, and she loved to say that I didn't teach children anything. They taught me. So there you go. When we observe children, they teach us to this day. Oh, this is my very first classroom at La Tourelle. I started teaching there in 1972, and I had 17 children. Only a few of them are shown here. They were all around the classroom doing other things. But it was a beautiful, if you've ever been to La Tourelle, you go up a kind of a curved staircase. And then my classroom was right at the top. And just above my classroom was Mother's Tower, where she did her writing. And it was a really blessed place to be. We had very busy, active days on staff. And it was a wonderful experience, wonderful experience. I continued teaching. I had taken my AMI training in Los Angeles in 1970. And then mother asked me if I would be interested in taking elementary training. And the only place you could get it at that time was in Bergamo, Italy. So my husband and I got married and we both moved to Italy for a year and we took our elementary training. And then I came back and here I'm teaching a lesson to some of the children in my elementary class in our campus. At that time, it was in Pasadena. I also had a blessed opportunity to work with Sophia Cavalletti. If you're familiar with her, she is author of The Religious Potential of the Child. And she was really the originator of the concept of the catechesis of the Good Shepherd, out of which Mary's Way has grown. And many of you are probably familiar with Mary's Way. And it is really the Montessori method applied to teaching children. And I got to be good friends with Sophia. She came to the United States. I first met her in my elementary training, and then she invited me to come to her home in Rome. And so I got some personal consultation with her. And then when she came to the United States, she came for 2 weeks actually to Houston, and I got a chance to spend time with her then too and take her training. But then the lifetime opportunity came for me to meet Dr. Elisabeth Caspari. She lived from 1899 to 2002. If you can imagine, she spanned 3 centuries of her life. And she was a friend and student of Maria Montessori. We'll show you a couple of slides of where they got together. She was Montessori's friend from 1940 to 1943, and then she became my mentor and my teacher and the grandmother of my children, basically. We became very, very close from 1980, when I first met her in 1979, but she moved to our community in 1980 and we started our training course then until she passed in 2002 at 102 years old. I don't know, when you meet somebody when they're 80, it doesn't occur to you that it's going to be your best friend for the next 22 years. Believe me, it doesn't cross your mind. Here we are on the first day of our first Summit University teacher training course in January 6th, 1980. And you can see behind us, there's a little golf cart because she couldn't walk any long distances and the classroom was a distance away from her suite of rooms. So we took the golf cart every day. And of course, my children would chase after it and say, "Can I ride it too?" But part of Elisabeth's story is that she and her husband were invited by a woman by the name of Gloria Gask. And Gloria Gask was the heiress to the Woolworth Foundation, millions, multi-millions of dollars. And she asked Caspari and her husband to go to India with her. And they said, well, we've got a school of music. To backtrack a little bit, Elisabeth Caspari at that time had a school of music in Chateau d'Ay, Switzerland, where she was born and raised. And that school was so well known that the children of kings and princes of the different crowned heads of Europe sent their children to her. And so she was very, very renowned and very well known. So she had to really think about whether she wanted to take the time to go to India. And then the opportunity was to go to Himas, a beautiful place high in the Tibetan Himalayas. So they went, and that picture is of her riding on a horse or a pony across the bridge. So they went with 112 pack ponies, if you can imagine. And you can see some of those pack ponies on the right going up and down. And she would tell me stories that being at that elevation in the Himalayan mountains, she said, if one arm was in the sun, cover it or it would get really badly sunburned, while at the same time your other arm would be in the shade and you'd have to cover it with fur because it would be so cold. So I can't even imagine what it would be like. I can't even imagine. I'm right now in Emigrant, Montana, where it's 90 degrees outside, so it's pretty hot here, but boy, I would not need if I got in the shade, I would not need fur. I don't know where all you are living, but I don't think you'd have that experience either. So their goal was to go to Hemis. And apparently once a year they do a great Buddhist celebration, and they do dances and they tell the whole story of the history of mankind. And when they arrived at the monastery of Hemis, they had missed the presentation, but they were greeted by the abbot and two chief assistants, shown to a beautiful guest house, and the whole presentation was performed for them specially. And so I wish I had pictures of it. There was an issue of the National Geographic, probably in the 50s or the 60s. I actually remember it. And it had beautiful photographs of the ceremonies. And so Caspar loved to talk about those experiences. But then the most amazing thing happened. The chief librarian and two other monks brought these parchments to them. They were between pieces of wood and wrapped in green, red, blue, and gold brocade. And the monk said to them, "These books say your Jesus was here," which was staggering information for them. And some of you may have read the book that Elisabeth Clare-Prophet wrote, of the history of Jesus. And it tells the stories of different explorers, including Caspari, who actually had the opportunity to hear these stories firsthand. So Caspari just moved into our community, started coming into our classrooms every day and singing songs with the children. She had just done some real acted songs, and now she's singing a song, "Quiet, I am so quiet. I am so very, very quiet." So you can see the children have got, most of them got their heads to the side. They're doing exactly what the song had said. And there's a song I'd like to share with you that was really, I've always considered it to be her theme song. And Kathy knows this. Some of you might know it, and you can turn off your mic and sing it with me if you wish. But it goes, "I am loving and kind." And it's kind of set to a song that you'd be familiar with, "Home on the Range." I am loving and kind. I am loving and kind. I am loving and kind all the time. I am loving and kind. I am loving and kind. I am loving and kind all the time. And then we extend our hand in a very friendly way. We never point, but extend our whole palm. "You are loving and kind." We sing the song again, and then all the children hold hands. "We are loving and kind." And it is a beautiful, beautiful song. And these songs are such a tribute to the presence of Elisabeth Caspari in our midst. And here she's probably 90 at the point where this photograph was taken. And she just, was part of everything we did. We used to go shopping. She liked to have the training course on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Leaving Wednesday, she said that's the day we play. So she had a beautiful car, an old Cadillac. She, with her French pronunciation, she thought it was Cadillac. So, but we'd laugh about it. But we'd take the Cadillac on Wednesday and we'd go downtown and we'd go shopping. We'd go to all kinds of children stores, book and music stores, various places of spiritual significance that she wanted to visit. And then we'd always come back and stop and have something special to eat. She especially liked French onion soup. And if she wanted something sweet, we'd have strawberry shortcake. So we had a lot of fun on Wednesdays, I can tell you, for years that went on. We're both Virgos. It's very interesting. Some of you who know the history of our training course, there was a woman who was involved with our training by the name of Anita Wolbert. Dr. Meadows was trained by Madame Caspari and used to come and do the exams. And so we were having dinner one night at Chico Hot Springs. There's a very nice restaurant there. And Dr. Meadows' birthday is August 27th. My birthday is August 28th. Anita's birthday was August 29th. Maria Montessori's is August 31st. And Madame Caspari's birthday was September 5th. So there you've got quite a stellium of Virgos. So we would always kind of laugh about our Virgo nature. I have a little section in my book about her, about Virgos. But then I'm holding who now is my oldest daughter, and my son there. Madame Caspari's got her hand on his head. She was really, as I said, like the grandmother to my children. And we spent all of our Christmases, all of our Thanksgivings, our Easters, and our Christmas and our summer vacations with her. And she would travel with us, and whatever we were doing, she was part of it. She was a blessing. Here you can see one Christmas morning, she's giving a music box to Lydia, and then later sharing an ice cream cone with Lydia. They were taking turns having licks of ice cream. So we had an amazing time together. But look at the joy on her face when she's giving Lydia this music box. And of course, she taught Lydia piano, and Lydia became a very talented musician. Although that's not what she does with her life, but she plays on the side. And there they are, just, loving to be together. And I just had to include this photograph because it's with my brother's grandson. His name is, or no, I guess it's my brother's son, actually. It's Nathan. And Madame Caspari would always go with me up to Santa Barbara to visit my family, and she and Nathan just hit it off. And you can see they're both enjoying one another's company and laughing about something. I have no idea what, but I love that picture. And here with my three children, Lionel, Lydia on the right, and Lenore in 2015. That's a few years old, but was one of the nice pictures I have of all of us together. Then in 2002, we had her 100th birthday. Those of you who know Bozeman, there's a hotel downtown called the Baxter Hotel in Bozeman. And that was the upstairs there was completely set out as a big buffet and a beautiful, beautiful celebration. And it was really an amazing celebration. Not too many people that we know get to be 100 years old and can still function. Even though her body got tired toward the last few years, her mind was sharp as a tack. She didn't miss a thing. And so I continued to teach. And the last years of my teaching was as a upper elementary teacher at Middle Creek Montessori in Bozeman. And I had this amazing class. And you can see we just all love each other so much. And it was probably, out of all the years of teaching, it was among the most satisfying. I just we got into a groove together that was so wonderful to leave my teaching career on such a high note. And I wish every teacher has. I know, when you're a teacher, the reality is that the alchemy of how the class comes together, it's different every year. Even though you may be very experienced, sometimes you've got a hard class to deal with, and other times it's just very, very joyful and easy. And this year, my last year, it was joyful and easy. And when I got together and had decided to start Age of Montessori, I had a meeting with all of them. And I said, I just want you to know that it's not because I don't want to be with you. It's because, and so I'd been with them for 2 years already. I said, it's because I know that God has asked me to do something else and I have to go and do it. And they just all started applauding, and they were so happy for me. And it was very, very precious. So I've done a lot of traveling. I've actually taught on 6 continents. I've North America, South America, Europe, Asia, South Africa, and Australia. And here I am doing a radio show in St. Petersburg, Russia. I had a lot of television and radio interviews in Russia. They were so fascinated with Montessori. And I hope I reached a lot of people. And I had a training course there for about 12 years, actually. I went every single year to St. Petersburg for 12 years, kind of a cycle of one time around the clock, I think. And then it was done. And I've kind of wanted to go back, but that cycle was finished. And one of my trips to Europe, I wanted to go to Amsterdam, where Maria Montessori's home, her last home was. And I made an appointment to go visit her home and the museum there. And I got to sit at her desk and write. And so that was a very special moment for me. And I got a chance to meet her great granddaughter, Carolina, who has recently passed in the last 2 years, I think. But we had a very nice conversation. I had known Montessori's son and I'd known her grandson. And so Carolina wanted to hear all about the times that I met them. And Mario Montessori, Maria's son, actually came and taught for a week at my training center and the AMI course that I took in 1970 in Los Angeles. So I was able to share some of the stories that he shared with us. But it was a very special couple of days I spent there in Amsterdam. So, people think many different things about Montessori, and I had read her books and I had been reading them for 50 years. But I finally found a new copy from the Montessori Pearson Publishing Company that shared something that I had never read before. When Montessori started her first school of indigent children, ages 3 to 6 in 1907, her first request of the teachers, and they were not really teachers, they'd not had any training, they were kind of caregivers. She told them not to try to teach the children anything, but make them happy, simply make them happy. And I thought if everybody understood that when we're talking about the education of the heart, as well as the head and the hand, we want the children to be happy. They're just little children, whether they're 3 to 6, infants and toddlers, elementary, whatever. But I was so deeply impressed by that, and I'm happy to share that with you. So the first Montessori guides, as our Montessori guides today, are asked to allow the children to act freely among the child-sized furniture and simple learning materials. So they could choose anything they wanted. But interestingly enough, in that first classroom, no one would have guessed what made the children happy. Now, if you're just sitting there listening, just kind of think, if you know anything about a Montessori classroom, what might have been the lesson that they really liked the most? It might surprise you. They loved hand washing. They just loved to wash their hands. Montessori said she had a very hard time keeping enough soap in the classroom because the children were washing their hands over and over again, doing the whole lesson, taking it out, washing their hands, cleaning it up, putting it back on the shelf, getting it out again. And so these children are in our classroom in St. Petersburg, Russia, and the teacher is showing them getting the suds on their hands. And you can see the one little girl in the background has been working with something. She's got blue paint all over her hands. So she's looking forward to getting her hands washed too. Had anybody thought that? I'd be real interested. They also loved to polish furniture so much that the varnish began to wear off on many of the tables. And then I love this little guy. They learned to polish the leaves of a plant. And Mark Prophet said one time, put brain in gear with mouth. And when I think about that, I think about his brain is in gear with his tongue. So little children often put their tongue out as they're trying to focus and concentrate. So this little boy was like the thorn in the side of the teachers. He was wild and running around and causing mischief. But when he got into this lesson, you can see he had taken an orange stick. We don't give them Q-tips. We have orange sticks where they have to pull off a little bit of a cotton ball and wrap it around to make their own applicator. And so he's applying the polish to the leaves in such a careful manner. It's just a precious image of a child who brings together all of his energies, his mental energies, his emotional energies, his physical energies into this absolute concentration. I have to tell you another story about this little boy. He grew up in our community at Camelot. And when he went to college, he really loved the Indian bhajans. And, he was living in the dorms, and he told the story that many of the kids would come and he'd say, "Oh, that's Indian rock music." And then they all loved it. So he could fit right in. So the children learned to button and unbutton, to zip and snap, all kinds of things to help them become not only coordinated with their fine motor skills, but independent, taking care of their own clothing. So the Montessori materials are just beautifully designed for what children want to do. So we have to go back to the title of this talk today: The Education of the Heart, the Head, and the Hand. So the heart is the desire of the child. I want to do this. I want to do that, what I saw Kathy doing, or I want to do that. Then the head has seen what the teacher's shown and knows the sequence. So his head knows exactly what to do. And the hand has the coordination and the knowledge to do it all by himself. And then the child is Montessori said, this is where the child starts to develop confidence. I did it all by myself. And she tells a wonderful story about a child who has been shown the sandpaper letters and traced the letters and was moving some letters to build words. And suddenly the child could read. And the mother said, "Well, who taught you to read?" And the little child said, "Nobody. I just did it all by myself." So imagine the empowerment we're giving children through these lessons that systematically, you can take that now to this subtitle of the mental properties and the intellect, but the individual knows exactly the steps to take to reach something where the child doesn't even know he's going, but all of a sudden he can do it. So I think one of the most joyful parts of Montessori is that their spirits are liberated as they connect to the internal spontaneous energy of their own development, because that's really life. Life unfolds within the child. And Montessori makes the point that for generations, people have seen children, but they didn't quite understand what they were seeing. They're seeing life itself unfold, and it brings the children joy, happiness, and interestingly enough, peace. It brings them peace. This little girl is a photograph taken in Vietnam, where we did some training a couple of years ago. But what Montessori, she was a medical doctor. And the thing that I think stunned her most was that as children learned to concentrate and focus, they became stronger and physically healthier. So there's a deep connection between the psychological well-being and the physical well-being of the children that was even unexpected to Montessori, and probably still to all of us now, but there is very strong link. So how do we facilitate this magic? Okay, we want to see these results in our classroom. How do we facilitate the magic? Montessori takes us in an unexpected direction. She doesn't say learn the lessons, read all these books, don't know. She says the real preparation for education is the study of oneself. Okay. You have to go deep within. You have to go to what Montessori called the inner teacher. I love this picture that I took of one of my students in a course I was teaching in St. Petersburg, Russia. He and his wife owned the school where they were hosting me there to train, as they did for many years. And you can see how engaged and deeply concentrated he is. So Montessori says the training of the teacher who is to help life is something far more than the learning of ideas. It includes the training of character. Okay, character. It is the preparation of the spirit. So, one of the things when you get in a Montessori classroom and children are doing all kinds of things. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is step back. We all practically teach someone somewhere. With my daughter, Lenore, when she was in third grade, she was teaching the other children about magnets in a beautiful science fair project that she had done with help from her daddy, who was a scientist. And then this little picture in the middle of is a little guy doing some addition with a stamp game in Jacksonville, Tennessee. And then up on the right, a young man who took our training is in Honolulu, and he is teaching them. They've built the whole layout of the beads and different colored beads, and he's now building that up into a tower. So I want to think now to what does it mean to educate? Some of you may have heard the lecture that Elisabeth Clare Prophet gave in the education of the age of Aquarius back in 75 or 74, 75. But she said that the word educate comes from educare, and it comes from the Latin to lead out from within. Okay, so that really takes a whole new emphasis on education, not on the curriculum, but on what is within that has to be released. So we know that the child who comes before us is a soul who's probably embodied hundreds, maybe thousands of times. He's got gifts and graces that he needs to manifest in this life. So the definition of education, according to Mrs. Prophet, is one who unlocks the flame of the heart. Isn't that a beautiful thought? There is a teaching that Mrs. Prophet gave me in a personal conversation. It's not in any dictation that I've ever, or lecture that I've ever read, but she told me that in ancient times, the causal body of the child was closed at birth. So the mother, in her months of pregnancy, if she wanted her child to outpicture some talent from his causal body, had to learn to meditate and try to put her attention on those things to let them be manifest. But the lords of karma came at a certain point, probably coinciding with when Maria Montessori was given the gift of being a messenger and was taught us about the absorbent mind. So we know now that the causal body of the child is open in the first 7 years of life, which is magnificent. So when we create these prepared environments for young children that include language, math, geometry, biology, history, sensorial materials, practical life, all these things, it allows children to then pick the work that clues into their own causal body. And that is the great gift of Montessori, to create these prepared environments. So we know that true education is never a pouring in, which is what I think the traditional education is all about. Well, they're third grade, second month, they need to be learning this, they need to be learning this, it's always pouring in. But Montessori says, no, it's a release from within. So she knows that that soul has got momentums. Yes, they need to learn how to read and write and do all those things, but they also have to be given the opportunity to explore and bring out what is within. So what is the education of the heart anyway? We hear that term, and Mrs. Prophet explained in one of her lectures, teaching the way of doing things, the way of endowing with love and harmony, the balance of strength and knowledge. This is the education of the heart. So it's not a curriculum, it's how to do things. And here, this little guy in Tikhvin, Russia. Tikhvin is a town about 4 hours outside of St. Petersburg, and they had a teaching center there, and almost all their staff came and took training from me, and then I would go over on weekends and help them set up the most beautiful school. And they had a woodworking shop, obviously, and this little guy is not even 4. And he's working, really working, using a drill, probably an electric drill at that point. But just to think, the most important part of our education is teaching our children how to do things, how to live, and how to love. The balance of strength and knowledge with love and harmony. It's just not what traditional education is all about at all. But we also know that these things cannot be learned without the fundamentals of the 3 R's. And the ability of the child to ferret out knowledge by logic, by reaching conclusions, and even some inductive reasoning. So this little guy, I took this photograph in South Africa at a beautiful orphanage called Lonto Montessori International. And I want to tell you the story of that orphanage. It started in the year 2000 with 8 babies whose mothers had died of AIDS. So a keeper of the flame and her friend, who became a keeper of the flame, decided they'd just take care of these babies. Well, now this orphanage has 220 children, and they all have Montessori, from infant toddlers all the way up through high school. And here is a young man he's the equivalent of first grade. He's in the lower elementary classroom. So we understand from Montessori and from the messenger that the seeds be planted of the 3 R's before the age of 7. We're never going to push children, but we're going to expose them. And then we're going to expect them to do things. And this little guy is writing a story and illustrating. So I think it's very clear that the views of Maria Montessori and Elisabeth Caspari are remarkably similar. And they're both eminently practical and joyful. And Mrs. Prophet actually tells us that she found Montessori when her firstborn was a few months old. And that's when she saw a book by E.M. Standing. And that opened the door to Montessori. And as her children grew up, and as the community started to expand, she then opened a Montessori school. And you can see the joy on her face. Whenever we had an event, a Christmas pageant or whatever, she was always part of it, and with so much joy to be with the children. She would come around every year. I was in the head of the school from a number of years, and she would call me up and say, well, I want to come down today. I want to see all the children. And so I'd take her from classroom to classroom. And then she'd make comments. And the comment that I remember she made was, she said, they are doing really well. She said, I can see the yellow plume of their threefold flame is burning. She said, they need more pink. They need more activity with their hands. So we implemented more arts and crafts and more science experiments to give them that love that came through activities through the hands. I don't know who this little child is. I've asked several people that I thought maybe it was their child, but I just don't know. I don't know how long long ago this picture was taken. It's not one of her children, but it's one of the children of our community at some point. So I want to switch gears a little bit to talk about justice. I'm a Virgo, and that's on the line of God justice. And so is Montessori, as I was telling you. And she writes in the most interesting thing about justice. She said, justice is not giving each one the same. It's giving each one what they need. So there you go. This little guy on the left, he's brushing the dirt off of his shoes, getting ready to polish it. And he needs big movements. Whereas this little guy on the right is just taking his pincher grip and picking up one nut at a time and dividing them according to what kind they are. So he's doing a sorting lesson, and he's got a blindfold on. That picture is actually from 1951 in Elisabeth Caspari's first classroom in Lee's Summit, Missouri. And it's amazing that the pictures that she gave me are as clear as that one is. So you can see there's geography for some children. This one is matching the puzzle piece of a continent to the continents on the map, on the globe. And this little girl on the right is playing music with the bells. You can see it's going up the scale and then back down. And I think this little guy is one of the little children in St. Peter or in Tikhvin, Russia, Down syndrome child. But the reality is that all children can learn. And I think that justice embodies mercy. You know, as we give children, no matter what their level of ability is, if we give them opportunity, they meet our expectations and exceed them because they see that we believe in them and they know that they can succeed. You know, they made a point in Tikhvin to let the community know that children with disabilities were always welcome in their school. And it was I personally have had 3 or 4 children over the years with Down syndrome, with other kind of neurological deficits and physical deficits. Actually have had children who are partially blind, and even a teacher who is considered to be legally blind, but she could see enough to work. So we want to make room in our community for every child. That's the bottom line. And, you know, that child, Elisabeth Caspari used to tell us a story about the path of learning. She said, okay, well, some children are going to walk along that path and get everything done just when we would expect them to do it. And then there are some children who are going to run on that path that always want more. They're ahead of the other children and they ask, can I have more? Can you tell me more, Mrs. Maunz, or whatever the might be the name of the teacher. And then, but she said, there are also the children who crawl along that path, but it's the same path. And if we're patient and observing, we'll be able to serve each one of those children. So I want to talk a little bit about harmonious development and what is really happening in a Montessori classroom, but I would like to pause and see if anybody's got comments or questions before we go on. Nope.
There's several questions in the chat.
Let's see.
Rico, did you want to ask your question?
Yeah, and then see if there's questions that people want to ask. You can do them with your microphone or whichever way would work for you.
Well, Rico's not answering, so I'll read his question. Okay. Maria Montessori, what kind of medical doctor?
She was an MD and a surgeon. So she had general practice.
Wow. And she's from what city in Italy?
She was from Rome. And she actually was the, what do you call it? The chair of the Department of Anthropology, if you can believe it. Her studies were very broad. Good question.
Lina wanted to know the name of the orphanage in Africa.
It is called the Lanto Montessori International, and it's right outside of Johannesburg, South Africa. Some of you might know a man named, now the name is escaping me. He founded it, and then his wife has continued. Louis Defoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's passed away a few years ago. But
can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, this is Rico. My question, what was the name of the famous music school in Pasadena?
Well, I can't remember, but it was in Chateau d'Ay. The name of it was Institut Musique de Musique of Chateau d'Ay. And Chateau d'Ay,
okay.
It's up in the mountains above Lausanne. Caspari told me many times I had to go there, so I did a few years ago, and it was beautiful. Yes, Rico.
Were you there? Was that you on the Tibetan monk trek into Tibet? Were you there?
No, no, I did not go on that trip.
Oh, okay. Okay. When you showed the
Did you
picture
go,
of the
Rico?
monk holding the, pardon me, pardon me.
That was when Elisabeth Caspari was there. That was her
Oh,
photograph.
okay. All right. Okay. The writings of Jesus that the monk showed you
The book says
her.
your
Uh,
Jesus
was
was
that the
here.
full content in that picture? Yeah.
She told me, and it's in,
So did anybody get any translation of that? It's in Elizabeth Clare's book.
yes, there has been translations of those. Mhm. Nicholas Roerich, Nikolai Nodovich, Elisabeth Caspari. There were at least 4 people who went to Hemis and saw those same documents.
Okay. Okay. My last question. Um, regarding St. Petersburg, 1985, did you or her or anybody receive a box of books that I had sent there were Saint Germain books in 1985-ish?
I don't know for certain. If you sent them, I'm sure they're
Uh,
there. There's quite a bit
okay,
of
I just thought maybe you
down in
might
the
have known
basement of
if
the
they got
building.
there.
It's a large library. Yeah, I can't promise that.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Rico.
Thank you.
Anybody
Any
else?
other questions or comments for Mary Ellen?
I have a comment, but it's not a question.
Okay.
Okay. I want to thank you for the golden thread, and I recommend it to everyone. I am
Thank
in the
you.
middle of it, and the only reason I'm in the middle of it is because there was something so profound I had to stop reading it and assimilate it. You know how that happens. But you might want to tell the story. Um,
I will get there, and I have more slides to show. I just wanted to pause
oh,
and
all right.
yeah,
So it's not appropriate right now.
yeah. No, I
Okay.
will. No, it's very appropriate. Thank you for bringing it up.
No,
But
what I want to do is I want to thank you because you
oh,
know
thank
about
you.
the directive that Mother Caspari received.
In
And
1982, she told me or asked me if I would please write her biography. And I said, I will. I will do that. I promise you I will do that. It only took 40 years.
exactly.
I had to raise my children and build a career, but I never forgot. And then when I kind of got to the point where I was in kind of a quasi semi-retirement, I thought, now I've got time, so I have to do
I'm
it.
so grateful. And I could only muse of what this meant for Mother Caspari, wherever she may be, that this directive was fulfilled. And so I
Yep.
thank you so much with great gratitude and joy.
Well, we know that Maria Montessori works out of Mother Mary's retreat. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's where Elisabeth Caspari was too. But, you know, fifth
Mm,
grade, I think so.
sounds right.
Okay. If there's no more comments, I'll go back and finish my slides. See where we are. There we go. So Montessori has written extensively about the fact that concentration is the key. And you see this little girl on the right who is now the mother of teenagers. And but it kind of gives you a little glance at some of the lessons on our shelves in our beautiful, beautiful classroom at Camelot. And she's doing table washing. And if you look at the material on the floor, you see it's all of the same color. So it's following something that we call color coding. So when she knows she wants to do table washing, she gets out everything that's yellow and she knows she's got everything she needs. And it's Then she organizes it in the order of which she's going to need it. She scrubs that table, and then she's going to use a sponge and get the subsuds off, and then she'll dry it off, and it'll be ready for the next child to work on it. I mean, it's just a beautiful thing. And then this little guy on the left, this is in a classroom in St. Petersburg, Russia. And look at the joy he's getting of pouring through a funnel. I mean, he's just absolutely engaged. Such a sweet little boy. So I wanted to share with you a little bit of some of the beautiful classrooms around the world that Montessorians have created, because Montessori has the concept of the prepared environment. And that means it's got the materials, it's child-sized furniture, everything that child needs to meet his developmental needs for those years, whether it's 3 to 6 or later on 6 to 9 or whatever. So here are 2 shots of one of the beautiful classrooms in Bozeman, Montana. A lot of light, a lot of beautiful. Madame Caspari had this idea of painting the shelves according to the avenue of work. So math is all on a pale yellow. You can see pink in the background. That's where we have the practical life. The blue shelves that you can kind of barely see in the right-hand corner is language. So each of the areas of the classroom has a different color painted shelf to help the child get oriented to find what he needs. But there's, on average, children from 3 to 6 in a Montessori classroom. There might be anywhere from 15 to 25, 30 children in a classroom. And I don't have pictures of the children right now. I was taking the pictures of the classroom. But here was a beautiful classroom that we had in a private home in Barrington, Illinois, when I was working there. And the home had this beautiful, beautiful pink carpet. And I said, well, they're going to paint, we're going to pour, we're going to do all kinds of things. Oh, no, that we want the children to have this beautiful platform. Of course, we were in that classroom for 3 years and nobody spilled anything on it. It was really amazing. But you can see here's a little guy who has just starting to build his first word. He's got a picture of a hut, and he's going to put the then and t. So the sounds of the letters are going to help him build the word. And so what Montessori makes everything so easy. Here's a beautiful classroom in Sarasota, Florida. You can see where all the beautiful colored pencils and then what we call the metal insets, and some of the lessons are in little baskets. They're just appealing to children. And of course, the whole environment is very appealing. This was one of the classrooms in St. Petersburg, Russia. So you can see there's low shelves, and there's using the backs of the shelves to display different things. Lots of plants and living things in our classrooms. And in Tikvin, this is a class for toddlers, and it's in the area for water work. Toddlers love to put their hands in water, and they like to pour it and spill it and clean it up and do all kinds of things. So there's hand washing and all kinds of things, but you can see how low to the ground they are for the toddlers. This one blew me away. I was visiting a school doing some teaching in South Korea, and they embody their culture and the architecture of this beautiful classroom with this beautiful window. I thought it was and there were a lot of children in this classroom, and some of them were looking up at me, but for the most part, they were busy doing their work. They just didn't care. And then here in Puebla, Mexico, again, the culture is brought to bear on the architecture of the classroom. And you can see the beautiful colored lessons on the shelves, big space for children to work. And, when children come to school in the morning, the teachers are giving presentations to children, but children can pick anything they want to work with that day. They're not being told to go sit at this table and do this. They're just completely free to choose. And maybe a few of them are going to gather together, but maybe they'll work by themselves. It's the freedom that Montessori gives is unsurpassed. And here is a beautiful picture of a school that Caspari trained that gentleman and another gentleman in rural Hidalgo, Mexico. And the Ford Foundation gave a grant to Dr. Meadows, and they put in a slab, concrete slab. Then the fathers all built the school, put in the walls and a simple ceiling, and then they were able to get materials. They had an interesting thing going in Mexico. The prisoners all had, in various jails around Mexico City, they had to work. So the assignment was to make Montessori materials. So they had the beautiful dimensions to make these things. And so their work was to going something that was healing for themselves and to be of use to the children. Because all these materials, these wooden materials, are made to a very specific specifications. So it looks like one child is learning about the names of the fruits, and another one is piling up the stairway with the cubes. And you can't really see exactly what the children are doing in the back, but they're all busy. Here's a classroom in Helsinki, Finland. Beautiful light colored wood that you'd expect. And here was a beautiful classroom. I spent several days with a very good friend of mine in Prague. And you can just see that this classroom is very well equipped. It's on a opening with lots and lots of windows. And you can see the children are learning about the different animals that live on each continent. There's just endless things that children in Montessori learn about. And they're all there on the shelf, and they can go pick whatever they want to work on. And if they haven't had a lesson, they'll ask the teacher for one. And that's how it goes. And here is one of the classrooms in Johannesburg at the Lonto Montessori International. So these are all children in the school, are all orphans, and they all live there, and they all have beautiful meals. There's a whole staff of people that feeds them and take care of them. And then they go to work and they do all the Montessori lessons. And I just wanted to include this pictures of teachers around the world, and the prepared environment includes the adult. And we talked a little earlier about the preparation of the heart and soul of the teacher. So we know that if the director or the directress is not welcoming, gentle, and kind, the children may not discover all that's within the environment, whether it's at home or in the classroom. So, we prepare the environment, we have to know that we ourselves are part of that. And so we have to get rid of our frustration, our impatience, whatever it might be. Like when I first started teaching at La Tourelle, Elisabeth Clare Prophet was the head of the school, of course, and she told me, when you go into the classroom, I want you to stand at the front door of the classroom and take off your stuff. You have no right to take your worries and your concerns into the classroom. She said, just leave it outside. She said, don't worry, it'll be there when you come out. But a lot of times it wasn't, because it was so relaxing to be with the children. But I think that's something I've always shared with the teachers that I've trained. Just don't bring your own emotional turmoil into the classroom. There's no place for it.
Mary Ellen,
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
a great segue into what I was going to ask you, which was, we've all been asked to be world teachers, and a lot of us work with adults.
Yes.
And I wanted to know, what are we learning from Montessori that we can take into our roles as world teachers?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And I think, as I've worked with training adults for about 40 years now, I know that you have to start out by getting to know them and ask them, not just tell them what you want them to learn, but find out what they want to know and what interests them the most. And then you can bring to bear the teachings on whatever it is that they need. I think that's a way to do it. And if you're with a group, of course, then you have to find out, well, what is your group been thinking about? What have you been praying about? What's of interest to you? So then, because there are infinite ways to introduce the teachings, I think, truly. And so we find out where they are and meet that, and then expand out from there. I was just reading something.
And like you just said, leave your stuff at the door.
Yes, and leave your stuff at the door. Yes. But I think the same thing holds true for adults as children. When they get concentrated on something, calmness comes. And, Montessori always said it is not the teacher teaching, it is the child mastering something new. And so I think as world teachers, we have to also know we have the grace of being able to share some of these things, but the person that we're speaking to or that we're teaching, they're going to take from it what they need. Not all of them are going to take the same thing. And so we have to be observers. I think that's part of it, to be a really good observer. But thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Many of you know Lucille Yaney. This is her oldest son when he was 4. Just learning to write his first word, rug. So I think this happens to us as adults too. We are cured from our psychological upsets by Kuthumi, by our work with the masters. And Montessori said, what is particularly noted when a child starts to really focus is what she called a conversion. And the first journalist who came to visit her school said, "Oh, it's the Holy Spirit. This is the conversions are of God." But she said the conversion is back to what's truly normal. The normal child is precociously intelligent, has learned to overcome himself and live in peace, and prefers the disciplined task to futile idleness. And I think as adults, we have a Christ self. We can learn to be at peace within ourselves, and we prefer to be working on our Dharma, right? I think these are the same principles. And this little girl, oh my God, she just is so beautiful. I was sitting next to her in Memphis, Tennessee, and I asked her, "May I take your picture?" And she said, "Yes." And she smiled as she's painting. And then I actually wrote to her mother and asked her if I could use her picture because I've used it on the cover of a book. But I think what we see is that beyond the silly or saucy behavior or nonchalant behavior of adults, whatever, everybody wants to work on making their ascension. They want to work on being part of a community. They want to work on becoming better themselves. And here's a little fellow just learning how to tie a bow. That's a big step for a child. So, Kathy, here's my book that you were mentioning so kindly. I've written about 5 books, and the most recent ones is the Golden Thread, which is the life and legacy of Dr. Elisabeth Caspari. And that was just published just a couple of months ago. And we sold it at the bookstore in the July conference. Some of you might have gotten copies then. And then in 2025, I wrote Free to Be, Maria Montessori's Essential Message. And I looked at probably 1,000 pictures before I found what I wanted for the cover of the book. And when I saw that picture, I said, that's it. And I think that's what really our teachings are about, for us to be free to be what is the fullness of our Christ consciousness. And when I put words for parents and teachers to understand for children, but it's the same message. And then Unquenchable Light, my 50 years in the Summit Lighthouse with Mark and Elizabeth Prophet. And then the book that I wrote a few years back, Nurturing Your Child's Inner Life. And I think these books are all available through the bookstore. Some of them are on Amazon. The Golden Thread is definitely on Amazon. I'm not sure about the other ones. And then I have a website that I've just gotten started to be. What I've been doing on this website, and the videos are not posted yet, but I am taking the thinking of Maria Montessori and comparing it to Pythagoras, to Thomas More, to Lao Tzu, to a man named Comenius, and of course the great Nicholas Roerich. So there's a series of hour-long videos that Montessori's comparison to all these different people, because I want everybody to find that there's a place that they can land in studying Montessori, that it's not just about children, but it's about the great thinkers of the world. And one of the other ones that's not pictured there is Benjamin Franklin. They are saying almost exactly the same thing. It's very, very interesting. And of course, we know he's the ascended master. And so this is kind of my message. And so if there's any other questions or comments, I would love to hear them.
Well, I want to thank you, Mary Ellen. I think this has been wonderfully informative. And Patricia Conan said it's been very healing for her to hear these stories. And we're all very grateful. So let's show our appreciation to Mary Ellen for all that she shared with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Ellen.
Thank you so much. So enlightening.
So enlightening.
Thank you very much. We do have a little bit of time, right?
Okay.
I mean,
Patricia, I want to thank you for inviting me. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen, not all of us got to know Madame Caspari, and I treasure that you share those little teachings with us that were from her heart, and especially her book. So it's a treasure to hear you. Thank you.
Well, I had the privilege to know her for more than 20 years, and she shared with me the stories of her entire life, and that's what the golden thread is. It really tells her story as she told those stories to me. So I hope you all get a chance to read it. I could have geared this whole presentation around her, but I thought, no, you read that book. I'll share more about Montessori.
It's amazing. And I have to tell you, Mary Ellen let me be one of the readers for that book. I thought, I'm not sure that I really know. I'm interested in Montessori, but I have to tell you, that book was amazing. All of the stories and everything that is in it, even if you're not into Montessori education, this book is a must.
Yeah. Well, she was a Chila of Kuthumi. I tell the story in that book that she told me that when she was in Adyar, India, on that trip up into the Himalayas, she was on the roof of the main building in Adyar, the Theosophical Society headquarters. El Morya and Kuthumi materialized to her and taught her.
Wow.
So she was a very special soul. And
we've gotten some
mother called her mother. And I include in the book, when you'll find a certain page that it has where mother writes a letter to her and says, to mother, from mother. So sweet.
Nice. So beautiful. And I took the first course 1980. I do believe you were the principal then, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you can tweak or correct what I'm saying, but what really, really impressed me as I was going through all the Montessori books was that Montessori set out to change the world. And she felt the best way to change the world was to teach parents and teachers to be for lack of a better word, to be the servant of the teacher within the child. Is that not? And so this also says something to what Patricia asked.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's a great thing to hear,
she said
Kathy,
the world won't change through adults. It will change more quickly through children if we raise them right. That's why the school in our community has been so important to me over all these years.
And Mother Caspari, I asked her, well, what do you think about the future? Maybe by then she was 100 years old or 99, sitting with her in North Glassbury. She goes, a little child shall lead them.
There you go.
Right? That's what she was
saying. Thank you, everyone. I think we got some good keys for embodying our sainthood daily. So let's close by affirming our love and increasing the love flame within by giving 0.07A. I am the light of the heart. So if you would please mute yourselves, we'll do this together 3 times. I am the light of the heart, shining in the darkness of being and changing all into the golden treasury of the mind of Christ. I am projecting my love out into the world to erase all errors and to break down all barriers. I am the power of infinite love, amplifying itself until it is victorious, world without end. I am the light of the heart, shining in the darkness of being and changing all into the golden treasury of the mind of Christ. I am projecting my love out into the world to erase all errors and to break down all barriers. I am the power of infinite love, amplifying itself until it is victorious, world without end. I am the light of the heart, shining in the darkness of being and changing all into the golden treasury of the mind of Christ. I am projecting my love out into the world to erase all errors and to break down all barriers. I am the power of infinite love, amplifying itself until it is victorious, world without end. Om Buddha. Om Buddha. Om Buddha. Thank you, everybody. We will look forward to seeing you next month on the 16th of August with David Brewer, who's going to do some more Bible sleuthing for us and tell us some more secrets that we may not have noticed in the Bible. Thank you. We love you. God bless you.